We have yet another episode being done today for the past podcast. If you're tuning in, I do appreciate it. If you'd like to check out any previous episodes, go to Spreaker.com/Brite Podcast. Nonetheless, let's continue the show. So I've gone ahead and opened up the window so I can let some light in. And it's only a reflecting visual of the light that shines on. The light shines every day, but today is a special day or a personal day for me. What's going on, y'all? Past podcast, back at it again. This is stuff, but this is personal stuff. So I usually have tried to kind of keep the podcast away from myself. But I feel like this is the one exception to that rule. The podcast, as I've been mentioning, or as you'll be hearing me say, I am doing podcasts and a podcast episode every day in April. However, there are episodes that are being recorded, such as this one, in the month of March. And it's a coincidence that I'm recording this one today, since it marks the 9-year anniversary of my sister's death or her passing. And I've blogged about it. I've YouTubed about it. Of course, based on podcasting, this is my first time podcasting about it. 9 years, I've gotten better with it now from when it first happened. So I'll give a bit of the story without making it too personal, I guess. Long story short, she was involved with an individual who will remain nameless, and he physically harmed her to the point of just sheer ignorance. Basically, he choked her to death, set her, left her there, went to the bank to try to get money out of her account, and then returned back. Was unable to get any money from the account, but came back to the house and set the house on fire with her in it. I'm sharing this story because I've realized that this is a personal thing with me, based on some things that I've gone through, as well as it opened my mind and opened my eyes to realizing that there are approaches and ways of doing things, and then there are things that we just should not do at all and should have a better, I almost want to say, follow through a mindset of. And no one deserves what happened with her, like, whatsoever. Like I said, I'm making it unpersonal, but it is somewhat personal because I've had my dumb instances of things I've done in similar cases, which I won't go into, but I want to share and state to everyone, if you're with someone and that person doesn't seem or doesn't feel right, walk away if you're able to. If you don't feel comfortable enough to walk away, tell somebody, because keeping it to yourself doesn't make the circumstance or the outcome any better, because all you need is the right person to hear, and they can get the word out before you can even say what happened. I feel as though lessons come in odd manners, and this is no exception to that rule. I've literally been forced to humble myself about a lot of things. like I said, today is the 9-year anniversary, but I also remember the first couple of years after it had happened, I was still numb. I was still foreign. I was still not acknowledging it like it didn't exist. A lot obviously has changed since then. I do make it my goal to find outlets or ways of not having it be on my mind and consume me mentally. My goal still this year, and this is, I'm kind of pushing this early, so this will kind of segue into my other social outlets, is that I would still like to live stream in October to collect for domestic violence in Virginia, for Virginia domestic violence charities. So I've talked about it. Last year was kind of in the works of happening, but life made changes, and that's the best way I can describe it. So I'm just doing this podcast mainly as a slight verbiage, but also just as a learning curve for myself and learning curve for those to know. And I'll add this to it. This is the nicest, almost direct way to say it. You should never pinpoint or understand how or in what manner a person is going to grieve. The reason being is that everyone grieves and everyone gets through things in life differently. To add to that, there's no right or wrong way for a person to grieve. Only sidebar to it is find that way and don't hold it. Because if you do, if you find the way, it will give you a foundation as to what to try to do next or what to figure out in doing next. Holding on to it isn't easy. I mean, holding on to it makes it hard because then you're mentally blocking yourself from being able to just, I don't want to say live life, but being able to enjoy the small or the simple things that matter to us. I've told this to people lately, and I think it's stuck for me. And I know it's different for everybody, but it still kind of gives a little bit of, it kind of puts things slightly into perspective. We all don't like facing it, but the hardest thing to deal with or the hardest thing to face when it comes to the circle of life is death. But it's part of the circle of life. Is it the enjoyable part? Obviously not. But you still have to face it because regardless, it's there. People, this will kind of be like a personal one-on-one. I know sometimes I've said, yeah, I'm keeping myself out of it, but I mean, I guess I'll say, most of y'all know BT, whatever. But my personal perspective or my big thing has always been sports and just overall, I fear rejection. But even without fearing rejection, sometimes fear of the unknown exists, but I think the biggest fear for me has been death. Because you worry about something that you can't plan or prepare for. It happens and that's the end of it. And sometimes I think we understand that, but we don't realize the severity of that. So I'm just kind of rambling a little bit with this podcast, but not really rambling. I just wanted to kind of get your mental flow going as to understanding that it may not be something that you want to face or deal with, but you also have to understand it's there and it's part of the circle of life. Granted, it can have, having it happen to you, whatever the case may be, is one thing. But when you lose someone that's close to you, yes, it is a hard part of the process to face. But you're put in a position of just learning to just overcome that obstacle and just move forward. So that's what I'm kind of here to share and tell everyone today is, yes, she's no longer here. But also, yes, it's kind of an odd analogy, but it's a good way to look at it, is the sun shining and she's part of the sun that's shining down. So, like I said, I'm recording this episode on March 20th, but this will be an April podcast because I do feel like I needed to address it while I'm, able and willing to do so, because putting it as a live April podcast and it's happening in March would have been kind of weird. So I did the reverse and just recording it in March for April. So thank you all. Hope you all have a great day. Keep listening, keep tuning in. And until next time, Past Podcast signing out. We've done it once again. We finished yet another episode. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. If you're not following on Twitter or on Facebook, please look up Past Podcast. That's PASS Podcast, one word. I am accepting inquiries for any topics or concerns at pastpodcastbt@gmail.com. And just continue to support. I appreciate all the support and everyone listening and tuning in. Until next time, y'all take it easy.